In the heart of Springfield Square, former location of Birdette's Tea Shop, lies curated collection.
Good morning, Robertson County. Welcome to WSGI 1100. We have a special guest this morning. Oh, this is Debra filling in for Lee Marie, and we have Lee Marie and Susan Hunter as a special guest today. Sorry. So pardon the newbie this morning. I'm filling in. It is a beautiful day in Robertson County. And we have an amazing, I got to listen in just a little bit this morning, Susan Hunter. What a blessing.
Well,
wow,
thank you.
Wow. God is just doing so many things.
He sure is. He sure is. And I thank you, Lee Marie, for bringing me in.
Well, it's interesting what the topic actually that, Laverne's guest canceled. I'm like, that was a God thing.
Wow.
Without a doubt.
I wanted to get her in before the November 18th, 19th showing.
I can't wait to see that.
And so I got that text last night from Terry Wilson saying, I got so much today. I'm like, perfect.
It's, God parting of the schedules. That's, without a doubt.
Exactly.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Just what a beautiful thing. I've met so many of the Vietnam vets, and they were so rejected and dejected when they came back home. So they got drafted in, and then when they came back, they were almost demonized. Like the people just were very cruel to them. And I knew many actually knew people that killed themselves. They committed suicide over it. So what a
it's a very
huge
real,
blessing.
and they were demonized. And like you said, many of them were drafted. They didn't have a choice, or certainly not a good choice.
No.
Jail's not good, and having to flee the country for the rest of your life is not a great idea either. So they didn't really have a choice, and they came back, and I actually have, so I've interviewed, after writing this book, I've interviewed about 120 different veterans, Vietnam veterans around the country, and I've had a number of them say their PTS, their nightmares are not what they experienced over in Vietnam. Many are, but some of them said it's not what they experienced in Vietnam, it was how they were treated when they got home.
When they came home. Wow.
Because they were blindsided. You go to war, you expect certain things to happen. Of course, you never really expect what they did endure, but they at least had their defenses down when they were coming home, thinking they're going to come home to a grateful nation. And when that didn't happen, and it was quite the opposite, it really blindsided them in the worst way possible, and that has been the cause of many nightmares.
Well, a lot of them, they wouldn't hire them, and they were just they were just protests. I remember the protests. I haven't gotten the opportunity to read your book yet, but I am very excited for what the Lord's doing, because it shall bring healing to many.
Without a doubt. I get an email, at least an email a day from a reader, mostly veterans, but not all. But they all feel compelled to write to me and just tell me about how healing it was to read the book. Some of them have even said, I had it there for a few days and I didn't want to pick it up, and they were just very hesitant. But then once they did, many of them couldn't put it down. They read it in one or two sittings. Some of them had to, inch their way through it. And what it did is it caused them to then do some research. So they would read a little bit, and then it would trigger, a friend, a comrade. So then they would go searching for that comrade.
Praise God.
It's been absolutely beautiful story even after the writing. So there's a couple stories. There's a beautiful story between my mom and Bob and their letters during the war, 7 years during the Vietnam War. And then there's the story, the beautiful, and all the God winks that came along with writing the book. And then what has come since writing the book. So it's just been a wonderful journey I've been on. I've been so blessed. And to think this started 56 years ago. This is how the Lord works. Started 56 years ago during the Vietnam War. My mom was just captivated by a news segment where it was mail call, and she was fixated on the eyes of these soldiers with anticipation if they were going to get mail, and then the dejection when they didn't get mail. And so she thought, as a stay-at-home mom with 4 children, this is something I can do. I can write to them so that they know they haven't been forgotten. And it gives them a little respite from the jungle. And she was just going to be their friend. And that's how it all started. She would write generic letters and say, I'm on a mission to ensure every GI gets mail at mail call. Please give this other generic letter to a soldier that didn't get mail today.
And this is one reason why I did want you to stay for this segment as well, because I knew we could cover another angle. And Debra's son recently graduated from boot camp, correct?
Yes, mercy.
So I wanted you to tell her that story as well about the new son.
Oh goodness. My dad was in the Navy, but when I came around, he was way out. And so I'm really not a military. I didn't know. I've always prayed for them. I've always honored them and encouraged people to honor them. And so my son just about 2 months ago said, I feel like the Lord has called me to be his warrior. I'm going to cry.
Of course.
And I'm thinking, what? Do what? This is the son that he's in the construction. He could take his, contractor's license in a few years with his experience. He's a musician. The Lord, he plays, and the room fills with glory. And he would always, he never played sports. He'd bring me the injured animals. I said, you want to do what? And you want to go in the Marines? What? Son, I think you need to step back and listen to the Lord and just revisit this, Well, long story short, he went into boot camp. And it's been 13, he's in the 12th week. So he graduated, made it through. He said, Mom, Hell Week was the worst and the Crucible. So, a lot of prayer going up there. And he just graduated, but
congratulations.
Thank you. I got the call Sunday from him. I've been waiting on to make sure he made the Marines. And another young man was in the background and he's saying, Mom, And I'm like, okay. So he puts the other young man on, and he's in Mendoza, and he says, I just want to tell you what a rock your son was. He led him to Jesus, and they've been reading the Bible every night before they go to bed.
Praise God.
And, and so he's calling me Mom, and then they go on to tell me he's told them all I cook really good, and I'm going to bring the mini cherry cheesecakes, and any food you bring will be fun. I've told them all you cook, we're going to do a tailgate. And I'm like, okay, son, how many sons more do I have? But the same thing, we reached out as a group of moms to make sure no one was left behind. I had another young man that when they shipped off, when they were going to send them to the boot camp, I looked around, he's looking all around and forlorn, and I said, young man, would you like a hug? And, he got on the same van as my son, and he said I would. So I gave him a hug and a quick prayer over him. And
I love that.
Down the road on Facebook, on the groups that I joined, I saw his picture, his mother, and I connected, and I said, ma'am, I believe I met your son. And she said, well, I dropped him off in Huntsville, Alabama, but he shipped out of Nashville. So just, the Lord, just amazing, miracles that he does. And thank you so much, because the military, they're laying down their lives. They don't control it anymore. They have given all. They've surrendered all their rights, all their abilities, everything to serve our country. So
and sometimes to serve people from other countries, which is, even more astounding. It's just beautiful. The hearts of those who serve are just amazing. They really are. And they have this protective nature about them innately, and they just should be honored and revered. And certainly when they come home, they should be taken care of until their very last breath.
Amen.
Which is another whole story of, the homeless veterans and those who aren't getting services or have to fight for their services. And that we need to up our game, immensely.
100% up your game.
And I will say one thing with the Vietnam veterans, and thank you for your sacrifice. And I love the fact that here he goes to boot camp and he brings somebody to Jesus. So
several of them. I think they're all reading the Bible before they go to bed. And, he was a squad leader, so he's getting to be,
Well, that's so cool, because I remember, when he was going to join, she was just like, what, Lord? She couldn't understand. Right. And when she called and told me this story, of course, I was crying too. And I said, well, if this is the only thing he does there, this is it, because there's nothing bigger than leading someone to the Lord.
No, and just being that example, because I had that talk with him before I went in, because the Marines are kind of partiers, okay? And I said, son, you will be known as the preacher, or you'll be known as the partier. And if you compromise, your witness will be blown. And, not that I needed to tell him that, but I'm Mom, okay?
No, you're Mom. You're supposed to tell him that. You're supposed to remind him.
He's God's warrior son. So I thank the Lord for the privilege of raising him to your glory. But now he's God's son, so it's up to you to protect him and to use him however you see fit. And you just marvel at what the Lord does, and he can turn your life around on a dime.
And I will say, in my journey, and I've interviewed over 120 veterans, so many of them have said they went to Vietnam without religion. And religion, I should say, a relationship. Instead of religion. They went to Vietnam without a relationship with Jesus, and then they quickly quickly accepted a relationship, and then now they're the biggest advocates because they know there's no way I should have come out of this unscathed,
No.
at least physically unscathed. Because they were watching their brothers die right in front of them or right beside them, and it's just by the grace of God,
Yeah,
that their mission wasn't accomplished yet. Like
the
God
warriors,
still wanted something for them.
the angels. I know a pastor's wife had her son in the military, and they were fixing to go in. This is another story. They were fixing to go into a place that nobody ever came out alive, and so he called home. And she just used the scripture, the spoken word, but she wrote it down and had a picture of God's warring angel and said, "Lord, you'll uphold them with your hand, your righteous hand." And she had that picture and put him in it with angels and just kind of prayed the word of God over him. And that whole group came back out alive. And the first one that came back out, they were in a foreign country. So a relationship with God is huge, because without him you don't have that protection.
And it's huge in both ways. So even if you did have your last breath over there,
you're
going straight
Stepping
to heaven,
over.
and you're going to get that warm embrace. Well done.
Hallelujah. Yes.
But then if you come home, you come home and you get to enjoy the splendors of life, and perhaps do some more, in His glory.
Yes.
So and I will just make one note. So I'm very much fueled by my relationship, and I believe this is an appointment, and there's no denying it. Actually, people who are following me on Facebook and whatnot, and I post about some of these what I call God winks. I've used Squire Rushnell's term, God winks. There's no denying His fingerprints are all over this, and I'm just the conduit. He wants to bring this healing. He wants to bring this honor restorative feeling to these veterans. I'm just the workhorse and the conduit, and there's no denying it.
But He needs you. He needs us. He needs us to
No, He
step
does.
up.
And also, I feel like He's using me as an example of, it's got to be me, meaning the Lord. It's got to be me doing this, because she couldn't have opened these doors. She couldn't have been an author and a playwright and a screenwriter all in 2 years. This is all Him. I do this for His glory. But to that note, I am fueled by my relationship and my faith, but it's not that in any of these projects, I'm not pushing anything.
No.
There's no agenda other
don't
than
need to.
restoring honor to our Vietnam veterans, and perhaps bringing healing, and also understanding, and also bringing some honor and some kudos to the families that have supported these returning combat veterans. So I just wanted to make that clear. I am certainly walking in His glory, and everything I do is for Him, and I pray, and He opens doors. Literally,
Meeting Marie.
exactly. I agreed to attend a Civil War event, and I stuck out like a sore thumb because everyone is dressed so wonderfully festive in period piece. And then I come in my contemporary clothes, and but I thought, you know what? I know I'll stick out like a sore thumb, but if I can maybe perhaps meet a couple of Vietnam veterans, or even just talk about them and bring them some honor, and in doing so, then I'm going to do it. And then sure enough, I meet Lee Marie, and she has me on this radio show, and I got to meet a few other Vietnam veterans, and then sons of Vietnam veterans. So I got to give them the challenge coin, to give to their loved ones. So yeah.
You stepped out in faith. I call that faith in action, because you can have both, and you have to have faith in the works, and you have to have the faith and the trust in God, and He's called you to this purpose, I heard you say, for such a time as this. So just stepping out and saying, Lord, that dream is big, but you really probably, the dream sounds like it's developing as you go.
Oh, it sure is. So I published this book, and in Laverne's show, we went more in depth to the story. So I published this book. It was a #1 Amazon #1 new release. It was written up in the New York Times and then republished in their Weekender edition because it was so engaged by the reader. So it was an editor's top choice. So, and then I have all these other testimonies of people in the industry as to the quality of the story, and it's really epic story. But as a result of the book's success, it has then been adapted to stage, and it's a national touring production. We're premiering it November 18th and 19th here in Nashville, and then we're taking it on the road.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because we want to attend this.
Yeah, so you can attend it. It's local here, and you can
Awesome.
get tickets from actorspointtheater.com. That's actorspointtheater.com. And there's tickets there at all levels. We have them free for Vietnam veterans and their guests. And we so want to invite Vietnam veterans to come because this is on a restorative. We have some really nice surprises for our Vietnam veterans in the audience. I don't want to give them away, but we do have that. And then we also will have the lobby populated with veteran services. So
Oh,
all
praise
sorts. So,
God,
canine
yes.
service dogs, PTS, just different veteran services, as well as some of the posts. So you can have some community. And if you're not a part of one of the VFW or the VVA or the American Legion post, this will give you an opportunity to talk to some people from, at any of those posts and get the idea of the value of community.
And getting some helps, because a lot of them have just been isolated, and they're by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we
Yeah,
don't want.
praise
Yeah,
God.
Even people that have read this book, they said after reading this book, it was just super healing for them, and that put them on a path to get some more healing, because there's so much. This is 7 years of that Vietnam War in insight from someone on the front lines, and it relates to so many people. It's just been wonderful. And
Speaking
pay
of-
it forward.
Speaking of 7, you want to tell her all the 7
yes,
things that have been
yes.
happening?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, so the 77 biblical number of perfection, and I happen to have 77 letters just from Bob Johnson, this one gentleman we're showcasing in the book, and my mom had the wherewithal to attach her carbon copy responses to all the incoming letters. So I have a dialogue, but I have 77 letters from him, and so therefore this has been my guiding number, and it is I can't even say laughable, because it doesn't even surprise me anymore that the significant people on this, many of the significant people, most of the significant people on this journey I'm on have a 77 somewhere in their address or their email address or their telephone number.
Hey, God's a detailed God.
He really is. So much so that I had this one gentleman, talking about the play, I had this one gentleman come see me at the farmer's market in Hendersonville this summer. And he stopped by with his wife, and he spoke to me for about 10 minutes about the story. And then he said, okay, well, nice to meet you. And it was just a lovely conversation. And he walked away thinking the same thing. And then he comes back 10 minutes later and he says, I don't know, I just got, a tap on the shoulder from the Holy Spirit. He's for a tap on the shoulder that I need to come back and buy this book. And I said, okay, well, I'm confident you're going to enjoy it. And then we kind of laughed it off. And so as I'm taking his payment, he hands me his business card, and I take a look at it, and sure enough, his telephone number begins with 77. And I said, Vic, you were supposed to get this book. Yeah, you were topped. I don't know why yet, but you were supposed to get this book. And sure enough, this gentleman has become the biggest advocate of this book, opening doors, getting sponsors so that we can put this production on, sponsoring many veterans to come. I mean, he's been amazing. He has been so touched by this book, and it has led us to be part of this committee in Sumner County to up our game for our veterans. And we're going to take this template using Annie Nelson from American Soldier Network and really get something that is replicatable so that other counties can do the same thing, and we can up the game for all of our veterans here in Tennessee.
We need to do that. What a blessing. What a ministry. And they're paying it forward.
So I had a question, but you want to go ahead and run one of our commercial breaks?
Okay,
We have
all right.
Southside.
So there's Southside.
Double click.
Double click.
Located at 1000 Main Street in the heart of downtown historic Springfield lies the Southside Drug Company, which has delivered hometown-friendly service since 1919. They offer medication therapy management, compression stocking fittings, nebulizers, monthly care packs in which you can get your medications rolled into strips of perforated packs, and free delivery within city limits. And my favorite, a healthy cafe for breakfast and lunch on weekdays. Store hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, visit SouthsideDrugCo.com. Be sure to tell them Lee Marie sent you.
Is that what I was supposed to do? Okay, we are back in WSGI 1100 with Susan Hunter, the author of 77 Letters, and our Lee Marie is on the other side of the desk today.
Yes, and I will be covering some calendar items at the end, so
Okay.
for Robertson County. So remind me in case I forget
I will
about
do
that.
it.
And also, I wanted to ask you. I had a couple questions. Do you know how close you are to the Orange Heart Memorial right here in Springfield? Have you been there?
I have.
Okay,
Actually,
all right.
Ken Gamble, the founder of that foundation, Orange Heart Medal Foundation, he gave me a tour about 2
great.
weeks ago.
Awesome,
Yeah,
okay.
very impressive. In fact, I posted on my Facebook and I alerted all the Vietnam veterans I'm friends with around the country, said, take a look at this memorial. Like, this is exceptional. And if you want to reach out to Ken Gamble to find out how to get it done in the way that he did it, I can connect you all. So,
Wow.
yeah, very impressive.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you knew about that.
Yeah.
And those of you that are listening and maybe don't know about that foundation, you can, for one thing, you can get a medal, an Orange Heart medal for free, but then also you can get your name or, your loved one's name on a cenotaph right there. And I believe it's $150 to do that. And then as soon as they have like 60 names, and they have a ceremony and they put up the new one. So all of that is on the Orange Heart Medal Foundation
Right.
website.
Yeah, and also he was able to pass through legislation that the recognition of this Orange Heart Medal Heart for all those who are suffering from Agent Orange and all the other chemicals they were exposed to.
So my other question for you, because I know you said that your mom was also instrumental in like getting different school groups and Cub Scouts to write letters. Are there still some of those that your family's involved with, or are there any that you can kind of tell our listeners how to get involved with some of those campaigns for writing letters?
Yeah, well, nothing that my mom initiated because that was just very grassroots and back in the 60s. But there's Operation Gratitude. And you can go to operationgratitude.org, I believe. And that is a site where you can submit letters, or give you the address where you can even send letters, and that will be shipped over to our active military. I did try, and I'll put a plug out since this is going out in the airways. Last year, and again about a month ago, I put out an idea to refurbish some of these mailboxes that we don't need anymore. And a lot of them are retired. The first time I put this out, 1,400 mailboxes have been retired. And I thought, what a great Eagle Scout project this would be to get those retired mailboxes, have them repainted in camouflage colors, and then have 2 of them be put out in front of every town hall, one for active military and one for veterans. And people could just drop off letters. Yeah, drop off letters to either population, and then the Army and the military, whatever branch, could disseminate it. And I thought that would be something that would be a reminder that we can still connect with these people. And you know what? There's something about the written letter.
Oh my goodness.
Right now they have the convenience of FaceTiming or emailing or texting and all that, which is great in many ways. Sometimes it's hard because think of those soldiers, they kind of still have their foot at home. They know their child has a fever and they're still supposed to go out there and perform an operation. So it's harder in some respects, but it's nicer. But there's something about the written letter. I know when I've talked to all the veterans that I talk to, I always ask about mail call, and their eyes light up and they say their world stopped. I even have a picture of one veteran who's reading a letter. He's completely engrossed in the letter, and you see the bombs going off in the background, and he's like, and he told me, yeah, there was explosions going off, and I didn't care. My letter came in from my wife, and that was my world at that moment.
Well, they get something tangible they can hold, and
Yeah.
they can keep, and they can revisit it.
Yeah.
I know with Jonathan in the thing, they told us when they went to that crucible, that 54 hours, no food, no sleep, crazy stuff, that we could send a picture laminated that they could take with them. So I put scripture and different things that were and put it in something in pictures.
Yeah,
to
those things
take-
are
to
so
take with them encouragement.
Yeah, just to get them through a difficult time. They're human. They're going to have weak moments, and
need it.
yeah, anything they can bring from home. I know Bob talks about in his letters to my mom that he would keep her letter in his chest pocket. So he'd go out on reconnaissance, and he wasn't even going back to base camp for, say, 12 days. He would have that letter to revisit.
Yes.
The one letter in particular where she takes him on a tour of Situate. It's a beautiful coastal town in Massachusetts, and she took him on a literary tour. Well, he kept that. And when he was out there in the jungle, waiting for Charlie, he would reread that and read it to his comrades. And it was just like a little respite for them.
That's awesome. So you're talking about I love the idea of the mailboxes, camouflage and all that. So the people that, the military, they can get a letter, ones that don't have that support, the families and everything. I know there's a lot of them. One of the young men that my son is serving with, he lost his dad right before high school graduation and right before he went into the military. And I connected with the mom, the widow, and she's had a tough time.
Of course.
And so is he, because that healing, but there's a lot of them that don't have any support. They just had a rough life. They went in the military maybe just to escape it. That's a reality. And so having somebody connect, which is a God thing, with them, those letters, having an opportunity to just write generically and then actually connect with someone that you can continue to support.
Right.
What an opportunity for blessing.
It really is, and who knew what a blessing this treasure trove of letters was going to be. And there's the obvious that we spoke about with Laverne, but here's something that exclusive to this interview. So Melody, the daughter of the soldier that my mom wrote to for 7 years, she obviously, in the story, she has this moment of salvation of sorts, as she called it, and that was her realization of who her dad really was, not who he came back as, but who he really was as a person. But it wasn't until after a year of me publishing this book, we were having a conversation, and she then enlightened me to the fact that this also got her to understand who her adopted grandmother was before life got in the way, and she was a single mom of 7 children, probably had to work 3 or 4 jobs to make ends meet, and that made it difficult, made her life difficult. So when Melody got to know her, she witnessed a very different woman than what Bob writes about in some of his letters to my mom. So she got to understand who her adopted grandmother was really like before life wounded her. But then she also got to understand who her biological mother was through the letters.
Hallelujah.
She always had a totally different thought about her biological mother. And as these letters, as she was reading through these letters, she got to understand who she was. And so this is the healing impact is just immeasurable.
It is. I have, both of my parents are alive, and my dad was in the Navy, so he's telling stories, so it's very interesting to hear from the perspective of a young person. Instead of an 85, he'll be 85 2 days. And
right,
so,
right. And well, I mean, God bless him for still being around. And one of the things I do want to mention on here is, so my mom just recently passed about 5 weeks ago. She passed, and lost her battle with dementia. But it's a blessing. I mean, she had led a beautiful life, and she is home with Jesus, and grateful for that. But I will say, when I went to see her before her last week, just to hold her hand and assure her not to be afraid, she was unresponsive for 3 days. And I got up there, and when I entered, she smiled, and she knew who I was, and all.
Praise God.
And then I said to her, I said, Mom, I just want you to know, and know this deep in your heart, those Vietnam veterans love you, and they refer to you as their sweetheart. And she smiled. She smiled. So, I mean, thank you to all the Vietnam veterans who have been just so wonderful to my mom in your words. I made a photo album for both my mom and Bob Johnson of not all, but many pages of letters that I've received from readers, the reviews on Amazon, so and the different articles that have been written about this book and their story, and just all the accolades that both of them received. So I made a photo album for both of them. So she did get to see some of that before she was too far gone.
Is Mr. Bob still alive?
Yes, he is. Yep, he is. In fact, we were hoping to get him here, but he's not, able to travel. And his wife just went through surgery, and that's another beautiful story. So there's just so much to unpack.
Need to get the book and see the play.
It's true. But I'll tell you this, another exclusive. So another God thing. This book, it can be difficult, especially for Bob's family, because he came back and he had some self-sabotaging habits because of the war. Like many do, they self-medicate, and so Melody's cousin, so Bob Johnson's nephew, Freddie, he had the book sitting, for a year, and he just didn't want to touch it because he didn't know if he wanted to go there. And I don't even know any specifics, but he just didn't want to go there. And then on his birthday last February, he decided to read it. That was going to be his gift to himself, is to read this book about his uncle. And he ended up calling Melody after reading it. And by the grace of God, Melody didn't answer the phone, so therefore he had to leave a message. His message is how we start the play. And it is jaw-dropping. And it sets the tone for this is honor restorative. And I'm not going to spoil it from you all. I do, I want you to have the surprise of listening to this message, but it is a beautiful message from his from his nephew. And just to give you a little bit of a teaser, he ended up getting on a plane and going to visit Bob as well and make amends with Bob.
Wow.
Yeah, because he said, this changes everything.
Well, a lot of the Vietnam vets, like you said, they had drug addiction, and a lot of them, had self-destructive things, even trying to commit suicide. So, from the outward end, you think, what's wrong with them? Why can't they, blah, 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 And when you get the backstory, your perception changes of the outward part, and then you can see them. I like to say, Lord, I do this wrong here. Is that right? Nope, there we go. I like to say, Lord, let me see others through the compassion of your eyes, so that you're not judging. You're not judging. Let me see them through your eyes, because that person that's cutting themselves, that person that is, using the drugs, there's something underneath that has caused them that hurt and that pain, and they're just trying to mask that for a minute.
Yeah.
And so instead of just judging them and act like they don't have any worth or value, you need to step back, but for the grace go I.
Absolutely.
Before that
I mean, think of it. Not only have we not walked a day in their shoes, we
ma'am.
haven't walked every day in their shoes.
No, for years.
Forever.
Yeah.
And so you don't know, people, oh, well, they made a bad choice. Well, no. And I'm not even talking about veterans. I'm just talking about people in general. You don't know what led them to that bad choice. Yeah. And so we have to extend grace to them. And it's not our job to judge anyway. It's right there in the Bible. We're not there to judge them in that way. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Grace, but then also not enabling. We kind of went over that, Lee Marie and I, the other day, because you give them a hand up by this book, just having an opportunity for them to maybe visit or revisit the things that caused it and heal that wound. Because if you just mask over, I remember one of my sons did something where he got a big chunk of something in his leg or his thigh or somewhere, and we took him and they were going to dig it out and they stitched it up. Well, it was still infected. It was huge. And so there was still some splinters inside, and they had tried to cover it over, and it wasn't going to heal. And then he did something else in the emergency room. I had 5 kids, 4 boys. And anyway, the nurse that was there, I remember her name was Nurse Love. How appropriate, right? I love Miss Linda. And she sliced open what they had done to stitch that. And by the morning, just putting a gauze on there, that piece, that stick, it was actually a pretty good sized stick, came into the gauze bandage. And then the true healing could come.
Of course. That's a great analogy.
So I'm visual.
That is a great analogy. And it's true. And that's one of the things that people will say, oh, well, that may be a trigger. And I said, it's okay, because triggers tell me where they still need healing.
Yes. Amen.
Yes. If it's not a trigger, that means they've already healed. They can put that aside. But it's those things that do trigger you. That's where you still need some healing. And
matter of fact, we were talking about that last Wednesday when we were talking about biblical foundations of freedom, because the author, Art Matthias, was saying any memory that has pain attached needs healing. And he goes through the process of doing that. There's 4 videos that are amazing about, leading you in prayer to, forgive that person or forgive the government or forgive yourself. And asking the Lord for specific things, to replace that. And it's a lot of people are getting healed through that book and those videos. So that just kind of ties in with that. And one other thing I just wanted to say is, we're entering into the holiday season. Matter of fact, yes, I have a reindeer on my shirt today. Because it is November, so I do want to give everyone permission. You may start playing your Christmas music and wearing your Christmas t-shirts. That is fine. Don't let your grinchy relatives tell you otherwise. But anyways, what I wanted to say about the holiday season is, now more than ever, we want to be sensitive to all of those people, in our lives that, need that extra help because, they have a lot of memories of, a lot of people have lost people recently. You know,
Yeah.
and so they need to, be inviting them out, and just be praying for them. And as a matter of fact, this Saturday,
Say, this is a good time for the events.
Yes,
woman.
this Saturday, the GOP meets every first Saturday for our breakfast. And what we're going to do is in the lobby, there will be a Christmas tree. And on that, there's going to be cards of gifts that you can get for our local veterans, surviving spouses, and just some other seniors that need a Christmas blessing. So I'm telling people, we put it in the email today about, when you go and take a card, and then at the next meeting in December, you can bring that gift back with the card attached. And so, just things like this, we just need to make sure we're reaching out, because I know a lot of places do toy drives, and that's great, but don't forget our
yes.
veterans and our seniors, and these
Amen.
surviving spouses, and your neighbor, your relatives who have recently lost someone. Invite them now. Get these items on the calendar now, because they're going to be sitting at home going, oh, I used to go to the Christmas sampler with aunt whoever, whatever. They're going to remember all that. So get these things on the calendar now. Give them things to look forward to. Show Jesus's love.
The nursing homes is huge too. When I did youth ministry, and just when I wasn't, I just brought my kids, and I hopefully this is post COVID, they will allow that again, where we would just bring them in there with a guitar and the kids dancing around, and just bring ask what you can bring. I think we brought bananas and peppermint candy. You had to bring something that most people. So don't forget the ones that are shut in to the nursing homes if you have a moment. But there's so many people that have found themselves alone. They're living alone now. They are empty nesters, and maybe a spouse has disappeared, or not disappeared, gone on, walked over to the other side of eternity. We're all eternal beings.
Yeah, and we are a community. I mean,
Just
we are
find someone to
we
love
are
on.
meant to we are not meant to be alone.
Right,
So
right.
if you have a neighbor that is living alone, then reach out, and like you said, I like that. Get something on the calendar now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plenty of
And-
things to do if you are alone.
And one of the things I'd like to just add is talk to a veteran. It doesn't. You don't have to go crazy, but just talk to them. Let them know you want to hear.
Tell your story.
Yeah,
Ask
tell
them
your
to tell
story.
their story.
Yeah, and ask him what is. Do you have a favorite memory?
Yes.
Or just ask him anything. So when I post about all my doings, I often do a hashtag talk to a veteran. And if I get one message out there on this whole journey is just that, talk to a veteran. And you know what? When you do that, you're going to, be very healing for them, because they get so much. You will experience it. When I interview these veterans across the country,
Does it for you.
even just in the interview, I see things just melting off them, and they're a very different demeanor at the end of the interview than they were at the beginning, and it's so important. They have so much to say. I have this one veteran that I joked about, because I had 6 interviews lined up, and they like to talk. Now that they have somebody who wants to hear, they talk, and they have so much to share, 50 years to share, essentially. And so I joked about it, and he's like, how late were you here last night? And I said, well, I was here till 7:30. Y'all like to talk so much. And he laughed, and he said, well, you know what, Susan, you're the first person in 56 years, you're the first person to ever ask me questions about Vietnam.
Yeah, it was a stigma.
Yeah.
It was a stigma for them, and it was for other people, because it was just so
A taboo subject.
disdained. It was. And so opening this back up
Right.
will give history that is actual and factual, instead of just some of the other stuff.
And that's the other beauty of this book. You're getting factual history, not rewritten by angled historians. You're getting factual history of this war that we know so little about.
Yes.
And I mean, a lot of you are really good about, when you see a veteran with a hat or a shirt on, say,
Yeah,
hey, thank you
honoring.
for your service.
Yes.
But yeah, go one step further. Go, where did you serve? Just ask some questions, because you're right. I think that's really important.
Great point, because although that's always well received to say welcome home and thank you for your service and acknowledge them, it really shows the genuine interest when you do ask one other question, even just one other question, and that may end at that question, or that may turn into a conversation.
I know. The Gary that did the
Gary Lima.
what is it, Morgan on the Rim. That was very interesting. And then you put out, he was a guest, and he had written a song to a soldier.
Yes, Operation
Talk about-
Song. I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yeah, and Bob Regan. Yeah, or Reagan.
So they let the veterans, they get the story and then they help write the song. Yeah, Gary's song is amazing. I'll have to
heard
put a
it.
post of that. Okay, so we do have some more calendar items to cover. We have 15 minutes left, and we got one more sponsor left. So this is one thing that I just was texted here from the radio station, and that is there is a food giveaway 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for our county residents, and that is at the Vol State Community College, November 4th. So what is that? Is today the 2nd?
That's Friday.
Okay, Friday. Thank you. November 4th. So again, that's at Vol State Community College, 150 Laureate Avenue in Springfield, and that is 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Also, we got, let's see, chronologically, what do we have? This Saturday is the Veterans Turkey Shoot. Right there in Greenbrier. And again, they are looking for some help putting up targets and such. So every Saturday in October, 8 a.m. to noon is when the shoot is, but you can come a little early, or if you want to stay a little later and help them clean up. They really could use some volunteers. You can text me at 714-925-2689. Again, it's 714-925-2689. All of the proceeds from this go to local veterans. So this is with the American Legion in Greenbrier. This is a great opportunity. Start getting your kids volunteering now and putting up these targets. It's really fun.
It is. And it's not real turkeys. I was so glad to hear that.
Yeah, we're not shooting real turkeys. We're shooting little paper turkeys. So, okay. And then also Saturday, of course, the GOP, I already said, is meeting at Purpose Life Church at 805 Memorial Boulevard. And that is their once a month breakfast. So you want to go to that. And that's where you can pick up the gift wish for your veteran or senior. And for more information on that, you can go to RobertsonCountyRepublicans.com. Then, of course, the Christmas Sampler is happening this Friday and Saturday, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday. And all day on Saturday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. And they're going to have different silent auctions and bake sales. And that's right here at the center in Springfield. So Christmas is full on.
Yeah, we didn't get to have the Christmas Sampler last year, so I'm glad to see it back.
You are right. And one thing I did pass over, Friday is first Friday of the month.
Oh. Yes.
Which means we are having the Wild Doc on. And those of you who do not know who he is a Christian chiropractor in Clarksville who is just having some amazing results, especially on things that, people thought were not curable.
Oh, yes.
So you are going to want to, and if you have missed any of Wild Doc's shows, of course, you can go on YouTube or Facebook and look for the WSGI Go show with Wild Doc. And I still go back and listen because when he's here, he just opens his mouth and outpours like all this information. It's impossible for me to get it all. So I go back and listen. But it's amazing what he's doing. And he is actually, after the show this Friday, which will be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., he's going to head on over to Health Kick Store right next to UPS on Memorial Boulevard in Springfield. And we're going to do a first ever in-store appearance so he can do some free little mini consultations while supplies last. He'll be there from 9:30 to 10:30. If nobody's there, I'm going to just ask him a million questions.
We'll take advantage of it.
But I'm sure there will be because we've already been hearing about people that have it on their calendar because he is in Clarksville, which is a little bit of a drive. So this is an opportunity to see him. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll at some point get him to start some office hours over at Crystal's place, huh?
Yeah, Health Kick.
And then the last thing I was asked to talk about was Women of War. And so this is November 12th at 10 a.m. And I'm looking for a location here. 801 MS Couts Boulevard in Springfield. And for more information, you can look at call 615-384-2556. Again, that's 615-384-2556. There is a registration fee of $20, and that does include lunch. And it says Armed for Battle Prayer Conference, Women of War. Yes, I'm sure that's right down your alley, so you'll be going. Anyways, those are a few of the calendar items. As you know, on the Go Show, we talk about places to go. And, there are so many things in Robertson County. I mean, I can't even scratch the surface. So go online, invite people.
Yes.
Because like Susan said, we are not meant to be alone.
Don't sit at home alone and be depressed.
That's right.
Get out of your comfort zone. The depression leaves when you focus on someone else. Mm-hmm. So just pay it forward, and on purpose, just a smile will change someo's life. But go to some of these events, and then you might meet a new friend like you all did.
That's right.
And then remember, paying it forward, nobody paid it forward more than our veterans.
Military, yes.
And so make sure that you are also, including them in all of these plans and such. And also, you know what you can do? A great Christmas present is putting them on that wall.
Yes.
And that's one thing that we did at Lights Chapel. We, for the May being the National Military Month, Military Appreciation Month, we collected money at our church to get all of our Vietnam vets on that wall. And then we had a ceremony, a special reception for them. So you can do that. I have a brother-in-law who is in the Navy in Oregon, and my siblings and all, we all pitched in and got him on the wall. And so this is a great Christmas present, very unique.
That.
A lot of veterans don't even know about the wall. And so that would be a great thing to do.
And you don't have to be a resident of Robertson County, correct?
Absolutely not. You can
And
be
it
living
goes- I love
I
anywhere.
love that idea.
Yeah, it goes to support local veterans, right? The funds and the donation.
And if you haven't seen that wall, go out there. It's just on Memorial Boulevard. And now we have, I don't know if you saw, the part of the highway is now called Orange Heart. Yes.
I did see that.
And then we
Yep,
also
Ken
have a
gave me a
Gold
nice tour.
Star.
Family,
Yes.
yep, part of the highway.
Excellent. So we're really proud of that.
love it,
That's
love
right
it.
here in our county.
And that is the cost of war, is the human cost. And it's generational. So if I could give a plug for on Veterans Day, November 11th, I will be at Custom House in Clarksville. You mentioned Clarksville. So I'll be at the Custom House
Very good.
giving a presentation on the book and the play, and then a hint into the docu-series that I'm producing.
And do you know what time you'll be speaking?
At 10:30.
10:30
Yep,
on
10:30 in
Veterans
their
Day.
on Veterans Day in Custom House Clarksville in their auditorium.
Okay. And the best way for people to reach you?
To me, Susan Hunter author at gmail.com. And one other thing I don't think I mentioned on this show, but for this stage play, 77 Letters of Stage Play, the tickets are free to Vietnam veterans and their guest. And also discounted for all other active military and other veterans. So
that's
if you
awesome.
want those codes, those discount codes, please just email me at susanhunterauthor@gmail.com, and I will shoot you back the codes, and you plug that into the discount code box, and Vietnam veterans, it'll bring it down to zero. Yeah.
Awesome.
Praise God.
Very good.
That's
And I would love to get this. I'm looking into getting this to come to Springfield Middle School. So that would be
good,
great. I
good,
talked with
good.
Ken
Oh.
Gamble yesterday, actually, and I said I'd like to do it like the weekend after Vietnam Veterans Day, which
Memorial
is March
Day, yep.
29th. But he said, well, maybe the night before, because so many people come in town for that ceremony.
Oh, that would be
so,
great.
Great
So,
idea.
yeah, so maybe we could do it, the night before, maybe, the weekend as well. But I will be looking into that this week because I just met dear Susan
know.
on
It's like,
Sunday
I know, it was a God wink.
at the Morgan Rim. Thank you, Gary Lima, for having that because
Yes.
And for inviting me. I mean, Vietnam doesn't have anything to do with the Civil War other than,
But it
A
was
soldier's
all
a
a God.
soldier.
It was all a God thing. And
Without
we
a
knew
doubt.
it as soon as I met her and she started talking about this. I said, "Oh boy."
Well, it's remembering, the things that went on before. It's honoring our veterans of any era and keeping
True.
that history alive so that young people can find out about it because they have such a distorted view of the past.
No, that's a great point. And I will say Jason Redman, he's a Navy SEAL. I was at an event and he was speaking and he asked all the Vietnam veterans to stand up, and he went on to say, we are a more grateful country because of what you all went through. We are a better military because of what we learned from the Vietnam veterans. And so everybody gave him a standing ovation, the Vietnam veterans that were
Praise
present.
God, praise
and
God.
and just as such, our Vietnam veterans learned from those soldiers from before them.
Yes,
So
they-
we all stand on each other, on the shoulders of those who came before us,
Well, they become a family, when they become a family. So,
without a doubt.
Lee Marie, are we supposed to do another?
Yes, we have one more sponsor to
So
run
is
right
that
now.
this top one right here? Here?
Curated collections.
Do I double click?
In the heart of Springfield Square, former location of Birdette's Tea Shop, lies Curated Collections, a unique furnishing boutique which not only carries absolutely beautiful accent pieces, but also houses one of our area's top designers, Carol Carter. Come meet Carol and find out how she can customize your home. Frame a view, soften a room, add depth, dimension, and interest. With a large line of upholstery fabrics, she can restyle and recover any piece of furniture. She does custom draperies, pre-made panels, Roman shades, and more. Store hours are Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Curated Collections is located at 618 South Main Street, Springfield, Tennessee. For more information, call 615-681-0029. Be sure to tell them Lee Marie sent you.
We are back. Just a few minutes left. WSGI on the go with Lee Marie and Susan and Debra.
And I do want to just mention real quick, because that's the first ad for Curated Collections and
Yes, I
designs
love
by
them.
Carol Carter. Yes, they do a beautiful job. So if you've never been in their shop, you need to go
Yes.
to the square. They're right there where the big, beautiful Robertson County mural is. That is the corner, just right across from Main Street Boutique. Go in there and see Carol and tell her that Lee Marie sent you and that you heard her ad on the radio today, because this is the first time. So exciting, exciting times. All right, Susan, show them that beautiful medal.
Yeah, so this is one other thing I'd like to show your viewers. This is a challenge coin I designed for all the Vietnam veterans that I meet along my journey. And I just want to give I don't know if you want to say it a shout out, but the gentleman who I designed this coin based on his coin, Robert Spider Parks, he just passed a couple days ago, and he was a MACV SOG. He was incredibly brave gentleman. He knew 5 languages fluently, and he was on a mission to find his comrade who perished in Vietnam, and he would go back almost every year he could. I mean, during COVID they didn't allow it, but every year he'd go back with a group to excavate the land and try to find remains of his comrade so they could bring him home and repatriate him. I mean, just a very dedicated soldier, veteran, loved by everyone. And so he just recently passed, as well as another dear friend of mine. We called him Reverend Rick. It was Richard Berquist out in California. He was a Vietnam veteran and then a chaplain for the police department out in California. And so it's hard. I'm becoming very close to these gentlemen, and they're passing. And I know they're going home to the Lord. John 15:13 tells me so. But still, it's hard. And I can only imagine how their brothers and sisters feel. So anyway, this coin I give out, and it says, welcome home, bravest generation. And the bravest generation comes from my book, akin to Tom Brokaw's labeling the World War II veterans the greatest generation, and for good reason. I took the liberty as an author to label the Vietnam veterans as the bravest generation.
Amen.
And so it does say, welcome home, bravest generation, has the service ribbon on there, and then the 20 years, 55 to 75, that the war took place.
Huge, huge.
That
huge.
is awesome.
Well, we're getting close to close, Lee
All right,
Marie.
we have 4 minutes left, ladies. So is there anything else we need to cover?
Well, I could give a little plug for my next project when this is done. So as a result of the healing from this, I started on a journey to travel the country and interview Vietnam veterans, their spouses, their children, some Gold Star families, South Vietnamese people, and even a North Vietnamese person. So really trying to get all perspectives of this war so that we can memorialize the history of it and also show the human domain of any war, but particularly this war because we know so little about it. And that has taken me into interview rooms that I never could have imagined. Again, a God thing. I was able to interview 2 Pulitzer Prize combat photojournalists from the war, one Vietnamese, Nick Oot, and the other American, David Kennerly. And he had a great story because he was in the reserves. And he said, I had to get permission to leave the reserves to go join the army, or to go join the war. And I got to interview Rocky Bleier, the Pittsburgh Steelers 4-time Super Bowl champ, and at the end I said, am I the only interviewer who did not ask you about your Super Bowl rings? And he said, yes, you are. Got to interview the longest American POW, Robinson, Captain Bill Robinson, for 7.5 years in Hanoi Hilton. And just the interviews I have, I got to interview donut dollies, the nurses. I have all perspectives of nurses. So one in country, their role, there were triage that was very different than a nurse in Japan. who then had them and then was likely going to send them back to the front lines. And then I got to interview a stateside nurse, which you think, oh, well, they were in place of safety. Theirs is minimized. No. They actually had to deal with that soldier, knowing that the rest of their life has changed, and they had to deal with the emotional and psychological healing that needed to be done, as well as be working with the family who was going to see their son for the first time in a very different state.
Oh, mercy.
So that's another thing. So that will be on YouTube and Rumble. YouTube
following
right now have
program
it
is
set up as
sponsored by
American
Focus on the
Documentaries,
Family and is
but
supported
they
by
will
the
be
prayers and
released,
financial
for free
gifts
for
of
anybody with the
wonderful
internet
friends like you.
connection can see.
All right, do you want to do a closing
This is
prayer?
Jim Daly from Focus on the Family. When you get in touch, please let us know the call letters of this great radio station.
And all I'm trying to do is teach parents to have a game plan, because kids by their nature are hedonistic little suckers. They do not come in this world with concern for other people. But that's our job, is to train them up, not train them down, and most of us train kids down. Train them up in such a way that they feel encouraged and loved no matter what.
That's Dr. Kevin Lehman, and this is Focus on the Family. He'll offer some great advice on how to encourage your child rather than put them down. Your host is Focus President and author Jim Daly, and I'm John Fuller.
John, most of us are blessed with one or more powerful children in our families. I'm sure have.
WSGI 1100, Lord, I thank you that it's a ministry and a service unto your glory, Father God, for the saving of souls. And we just thank you for this day. In your precious name, amen.
Amen. And thank you, Miss Debra, for running the board today. Appreciate that. We will see you guys all this Friday morning at 8 a.m. for the Wild Doc. You've been listening to 1100 WSGI.
Off for now. Okay. Now I'll go up here.